Good morning, everyone. I shall be teaching on the diseases of lacrimal system. As we know that lacrimal system consists of tear-producing lacrimal glands and its drainage system. The lacrimal drainage system consists of upper and lower punctum and paired lacrimal canaliculi, lacrimal sac, and nasolacrimal duct, which opens into the inferior meatus. The development of nasolacrimal duct starts at the 32nd day of intrauterine life. In this, an ectoderm is invaginated between the lateral nasal process and maxillary process as a epithelial rod. And throughout the life, intrauterine life, it keeps on canalizing, and thus a canalization in this epithelial rod develops, and this becomes a tube-like structure. A membranous covering remains over the puncta, and a covering remains over the nasolacrimal duct outlet. The punctal membranes open at full term. However, the membrane of Hassner remains imperforate in up to 70% of the newborns, and majority opens within the first few months. Puncta are opening of 0.3 mm in diameter on the medial aspect of the upper and lower eyelid margins, and each punctum sits on top of an elevated mound called papilla lacrimalis. Puncta are directed posteriorly against the globe. Therefore, they are not visible unless the eyelid is everted. Canaliculi have an initial vertical segment. It goes vertically down and vertically up around 2 mm, and then followed by 8 mm horizontal part. And the angle between the vertical and horizontal are approximately 90 degrees. And the canaliculi dilate at the junction to form an ampulla here. And in most individuals, the horizontal portion of the canaliculi converges to form a common canaliculum. And the oblique entrance of the common canaliculus enter into the lacrimal sac, forms the valve of Rosenmuller, which prevents retrograde reflux of fluid from sac into the canaliculi. Here, this is the vertical portion of the canaliculi. This is the horizontal portion of the canaliculi. They form a common canalicular duct. And here is the situation of valve of Rosenmuller, which prevents reflux back to the eye from the sac. And this is the sac, and part above this common canalicular duct is called fundus of the sac, and then here this is the nasolacrimal duct. Nasolacrimal duct passes through the bony part, and we call it bony part of the nasolacrimal duct. And at the end of this nasolacrimal duct, in children's or in neonates, there is a valve of Hassner. If it does not open, then it may cause congenital nasolacrimal duct block. The lacrimal sac sits within the lacrimal fossa, and this is bounded anteriorly by frontal process of the maxillary bone, we call it anterior lacrimal crest, and posteriorly by the thin lacrimal bone, we call it posterior lacrimal crest. This is the anterior lacrimal crest and this is the posterior lacrimal crest. You can palpate this anterior lacrimal crest by palpating your inferior orbital rim and going medially and upward. This is an important landmark for any surgery to be done over the lacrimal sac because this gives the landmark of lacrimal sac. You can palpate this inferior orbital rim and go upward, and here you can feel the crest and you can mark it with pencil also or ink also. This helps in any surgery of the nasolacrimal sac. And differing portions of lacrimal bone and maxillary bone make up lacrimal fossa, and the position of the vertically oriented suture between them is variable. And this fossa is approximately 16 mm height, 4 to 9 mm wide, and 2 mm deep. Lacrimal bone can also be localized intranasally by some endoscope by its position, which is anterior to the uncinate process of the ethmoid bone. Lacrimal sac can be divided into the fundus, extends 3 to 5 mm above the superior portion of the medial canthal tendon, and the body extends approximately 10 mm below the fundus of the osseous opening of the nasolacrimal. Lacrimal fossa is surrounded by fibers of the orbicularis oculi muscles, and the orbital septum attaches to the medial orbital wall at the posterior lacrimal crest. So the lacrimal sac becomes preseptal structure. And this importance of this preseptal structure is that whenever there is inflammation or infection of any preseptal structure like lacrimal sac, it does not go into the orbit by itself. So any inflammation in the preseptal structure is relatively safe because inflammation of the orbit is a more grievous situation. The superficial head of the muscle travels around the front of the sac to attach to the anterior lacrimal crest, and the deep head of the muscle travels behind the sac to attach to the posterior lacrimal crest. And the nasolacrimal duct consists of 12 mm superior intraosseous portion and 5 mm inferior membranous portion. The bony nasolacrimal canal is approximately 1 mm in diameter. This is intraosseous part and this is membranous part. The intraosseous part travels posterolaterally. Please remember the word posterolaterally through the nasolacrimal canal within the maxillary bone. This will help you, knowing the accurate direction of nasolacrimal duct helps in proper probing of this canal. This probing of this nasolacrimal canal. The membranous part runs within the nasal mucosa, eventually opening into the inferior meatus under the inferior nasal turbinate. And the valve of Hasner at the opening of nasolacrimal duct with the nasal cavity has been found to be imperforate in about 70% of the newborn. So many a time a newborn may present to you with tearing of one or both the eyes along with discharge. This may not be conjunctivitis, and simple pressure over the sac can relieve this symptom by opening of the valve of has none, or it may perforate spontaneously by its own. Spontaneous opening of the imperforate valve of Hasner's usually occurs within 6 to 12 months. So one should wait for any such congenital nasolacrimal duct blockage up to 6 to 12 months, and after that you can plan for some intervention. Another important landmark is angular vein, which is around 6 to 7 to 11 millimeter away from this medial canthus. Surgery over this area can cause profuse bleeding if we cut this angular vein. So precautions are taken not to cut this angular. Sensory supply is by lacrimal nerve, which is a branch of ophthalmic division of the fifth nerve. And so for any SAC surgery or nasolacrimal duct surgery, these points must be anesthetized by infiltrative local anesthesia, that is infratrochlear nerve and supratrochlear nerves, and this is also given locally at the medial canthus. How this nasolacrimal duct drains the tears, various theory has been given, but the most accepted theory is that blinking of lids causes contraction of the orbicularis muscle, and this causes suction of the tears into the sac. And the one-way mechanism is ensured by valve of Roger-Muller. Now coming to the diseases of lacrimal glands, any inflammation in the lacrimal gland is called dacryoadenitis. This is an inflammation of lacrimal gland which may be associated with suppuration. Usually this is self-limiting. Dacryops is a condition in which there is a cystic swelling in the upper fornix due to blockage of one of the lacrimal ducts. And any other tissue, this can also get affected with tumors. So the tumors of lacrimal glands will result in swelling in the superolateral orbit, because lacrimal gland lies there with the displacement of eye downward and inward. Mild proptosis might be associated with this. Benign tumors are slowly progressing and painless. And when we do X-ray or contrast enhanced CT scan, you will find that bones are not involved and bony margin of the orbit is not eroded, while malignant tumors are painful and rapidly growing with bony involvement, and on CT scan the bony margins can be seen eroded. There are other conditions in which there is insufficient or improper formation of tears, leading to unstable tear film over the cornea, and we call it dry eye diseases. This will be dealt in details in another class. Another condition is Mikulicz syndrome. In this, a symmetrical enlargement of lacrimal and salivary glands occur. The word epiphora, which is used for any type of increased tearing due to overflow, and this may be due to obstruction, stenosis, punctal malposition, or functional disorders of the lacrimal passage. The lacrimal obstruction commonly occurs at the junction of lacrimal sac and nasolacrimal duct. This is very important thing to know that the obstruction occurs at the junction of lacrimal sac and nasolacrimal duct. And this may be associated with chronic or acute dacryocystitis. Mucocele. This is retention of tears and mucus in the sac, which results in distension of the sac. Functional epiphora. In this, there is no detectable obstruction seen on syringing of the nasolacrimal duct passage, but still there is tearing. This may be due to non-functioning of the pump, lacrimal drainage pump. Disease of the lacrimal passage. Dacryocystitis. This is inflammation of lacrimal sac. Congenital dacryocystitis presents since neonatal period and it is almost always chronic and painless. This may be due to imperforate valve of Hassner, and acquired dacryocystitis can be acute or chronic or due to along with lacrimal obstruction. Acute dacryocystitis usually presents with inflammation of the sac. So all the symptoms and signs of inflammation are present in cases of acute dacryocystitis, and this is treated with systemic antibiotics, as many a times this is because of bacterial infection like Streptococcus and Staphylococcus. So sensitive and systemic antibiotics are very effective, and along with this we can give NSAIDs. While chronic dacryocystitis presents with the mucopurulent or mucus discharge and water discharge along with some fullness over the sac, and they are usually associated with nasolacrimal duct block and sometimes with fistula opening over the skin. And the treatment of chronic dacryocystitis, when it is present with nasolacrimal duct or with fistula, this is dacryocystorhinostomy or dacryocystectomy. With this hearing,